Hello everyone, I am Sorina from the Lebanese Center for Energy Conservation, which is the National Energy Agency in Lebanon responsible of policies and action plans related to energy efficiency and renewable energy. So I'm going to change a bit the topic now. We're going to talk about policies and the financing mechanisms needed for energy retrofit or energy intervention. Not specifically in heritage building, in most types of buildings, but the focus and the best outcome that we had at the end of the project, the big project, is the energy performance contracting. It's not working. Yeah. So my presentation will go as follows. I'm gonna talk first a small introduction about the importance of energy efficiency at the policymaker level, then about the existing policies for energy retrofit at the EU level and specifically the Mediterranean level. Then I'm gonna talk about the types of existing financing mechanisms. I'm going to speak a bit about the Lebanese case given the current financing and economic crisis and what would be the solution for retrofit buildings in Lebanon. And I will conclude with the best outcome or one of the major outcomes, let's say, of the big project, which is energy performance contracting. So the concept of Trias Energetica is basically for energy renovation in buildings, for energy retrofit. We should first of all start definitely with reducing the demand of a building. Then the second step would be to ensure the energy demand using sustainable solutions like renewable energy and others. And the third step would be, if we have a remaining energy demand and we need to use fossil fuel, let's use them efficiently. So this is the concept which is called Trias Energetica concept. Okay. The energy efficiency in general is invisible. So that's why we find it lacking at the policymaker level and as well at the end user level, because people cannot see specifically the outcomes, specifically when the energy bill does not reduce with a huge impact. However, for renewable energy, the focus is there because we can see definitely the system installed. For energy efficiency, it's more like invisible, which is impacting definitely the energy retrofit and the integration of energy efficiency measures and energy conservation measures in buildings. So, as a general overview of the EU policies, we can see that the Energy Efficiency Directive in 2012 have integrated, let's say, the concept and specified the importance of energy retrofit in public buildings specifically. We find the words of energy audit, we find the word of having the public sector as being an example and a lead in this domain. In 2018, we find that there is the directive specifically talks about an energy efficiency target along with the renewable energy target. So in 2018, we didn't, let's say, let over energy efficiency. The EU directive has specified it. More specifically, the directives related to the energy efficiency in buildings, I'm not going to read them all. However, I underlined the main words. We can see that the word renovation is a key word in the energy efficiency directive. And we can see as well that public bodies are becoming more and more a target to reduce energy consumption at the EU level and specifically at the Mediterranean level. Here we can see the specification of action plans and policies at the Mediterranean level. If you go further through this report, which was published by Medreg, the Mediterranean Energy Regulator, it's based in Milan, we can see that for most of the Mediterranean countries, the building has been recently a huge target in all action plans, retrofitting all types of buildings, more specifically public buildings. However, we have the policies. What are the main barriers refraining all these countries from really implementing the energy efficiency retrofit for buildings? we find that the finance is the major barrier. So most of the countries and governments are disbursing and deploying money. However, we still, at the Mediterranean level, find that there is an insufficient cash flow for energy retrofit, and there is a high investment risk in some countries, and in the MENA region specifically, we have a difficulty in accessing to funds. At the Lebanese level, along with the fund, there are many other problems. So one of them is the subsidized electricity, is the lack of awareness, and the lack, of course, of capacity building. The institutional framework and regulatory framework is still weak in Lebanon till now. However, the major problem is subsidized electricity. So whenever you go to a public entity or to end user telling them you should implement energy efficiency measure, they will say, but the electricity is cheap. Why going further in our retrofit? In order to well-design policy, I've been working in policy design for now 12 years, approximately at the country level, governmental level, and local level. So we have to take into consideration at least these 6, let's say, criteria. The environmental effectiveness, of course, the cost effectiveness, and what we miss most of the time is the complexity of implementing these measures. So most of the time the regulator will implement a certain law or a certain regulatory framework that will not really be simple to apply on local levels, in buildings, and in several types of applications. For the policy approach, we have, and the design of policies, we have 3 types, of course. The first one is the command and control, the second one is market-based, and the third one is voluntary. Sometimes they are categorized into 2 major categories, the soft policies and the hard policies. For examples, for instance, in the command and control policy instruments, we have the mandatory energy standards. They are very widely used in Europe and in the northern Mediterranean countries, but not in the southern Mediterranean countries. So we should maybe enforce the implementation of these. There are several as well South Mediterranean countries who do not have building codes. If we want to retrofit building, let's put some criteria for in the building codes for energy efficiency. For instance, in Lebanon, we have a building code which has been installed since 2000 and updated in 2005, but there is no mention for energy efficiency or any type of renewable energy implementation to be put there. So the update of building codes is a need. For the market-based policy instruments, we have the, of course, taxes, tax credit, grants, and so on. For the voluntary policy instruments, we should work on the education, the awareness, the capacity building. How to stimulate investment for energy retrofit? There are 3 main ways: the fiscal incentives or direct subsidies, increasing the cash flow, and reducing the risk associated with a certain project through soft loans. For the public actors intervention, what I have seen through these years of work, we have the direct subsidies, we have the grants, we have fiscal support and incentives. However, the types of support mechanism can be categorized into 2 major types. The first one is investment focused, and the second one is production focused. Of course, when we talk about production focused, we're talking about renewable energy generation, where we have feed-in tariff mechanism and net metering mechanism with all its aspects. The virtual net metering, community net metering, individual net metering. And we have the second type, which is based on quantity, which is related to tender mechanism. The disadvantages of these mechanisms are as follows. The quota mechanism, its main disadvantage, if we don't have a stable regulatory and institutional framework, it's going to fail, based on experiences in several countries. The second type of mechanism is related to tenders, and it has been seen specifically for renewable energy in several European countries like France and UK, because when you have a tender and a bidding process, the bidder will put a very low price in order to get the bid and to win the bid. However, at the end, they will abandon the project because it will not be economically sustainable. The third type of mechanism, the tax incentive, the major disadvantage of this one is it will put a burden on the public sector, on the public budget. And the last one is the soft loan mechanism. its main disadvantage, it will exclude unbankable people, because if you are taking a loan, you have to have mortgage behind, you have to have guarantees, so there are a lot of end users that they cannot have access to that. Now, we have the policies types, we have the financing mechanisms types. However, what if a country is suffering from a harsh economic situation? What if a country is suffering from a banking crisis? What if the country is facing daily blackouts? What if the energy prices are increasing? This is the case of Lebanon. So for us, all these mechanisms won't work in the current situation. And this is the major outcome of the BP project. So here just some photos about the energy crisis recent in Lebanon, where people were queuing to get fuel and gas. We have daily blackouts. Fortunately, we had policies since 2009 installed, and we have improved the regulatory framework, but still the access to finance is hard. Before the crisis, we had a very successful financing mechanism, which was called ENI. However, it stopped in 2020. So this has created savings around 2,260 gigawatt hours, and it has created sustainable jobs and created several market opportunities. But after the crisis, or during the crisis, we have, as I said, daily blackouts. We account on private generators, diesel generators, that prices are changing, of course, with the international crises. Fortunately, and let's say fortunately, this has created a boom in the market of renewable energy and has created a direct awareness at the end user level, whether public entities or private entities, to reduce their energy demands. There is a new initiative related to Banque de l'Habitat for renovating buildings in order to help people reducing their energy consumption. And in addition to that, there are soft loans now, has started in June 2022 to integrate solar energy loans. So in the case of Lebanon, we had the financing mechanism that was working. We had the policies that and the regulatory framework since 2009 and have been updated till now, but we still cannot integrate correctly energy efficiency and renewable energy in public buildings. So, as per the BP project outcome, we found that energy performance contracts are a major solution. What is an energy performance contract? You have an energy service company, you have the end user, whether it's a public entity or a private entity, they have a contract together, and we have two models of these contracts. The first model is, I'll get back to this. The first model is called guaranteed model, and the savings model, and the second one is the shared savings model. So the main advantages of the EPC is that we overpass financial barriers, no risk at the customer side. We can integrate innovative technologies because the energy service company will look after saving energy in order to get paid at the end. And of course, we can contribute in the reduction of energy consumption overall the country, not only on a local aspect. So, for the difference between both models, there is a difference between the fund availability. For the guaranteed savings, the customer will undertake himself the fund to implement the measures, whereas in the shared savings, the resources should come from the energy service company. So the end user will not be paying any money for that. The second difference relies in the financial compensation. So if in the guaranteed savings model, the actual savings were higher than the guaranteed savings, or the ones that the ESCO claimed that it will be achieving, the energy service company will be paid the amount of contract that was agreed upon. However, in the shared savings mechanism, the financial compensation will be based as a percentage of the accomplished savings between both entities. In the guaranteed savings model, if the actual savings are less than the ones that the ESCO claimed that it will accomplish, in this case, a difference will be paid for the energy service company. The third main difference between both is related to the equipment installation. So for the guaranteed savings, the customer himself will be paying for the equipment, will be paying for these measures, initiatives. However, in the shared savings model, the ESCO will be paying that and will be entitled to have these equipment until the end of the contract. They would agree with the end user if they should keep, if the end user would like to keep the equipment or not. So at the end of my presentation, I would like to say that there is no fit-all solution. At a country level or a local authority level, you can have policies, you can have regulatory framework, you can have several types of financing mechanism, but each and every department or local authority has its own solutions. The second one, the financing mechanism should take into consideration the level of maturity of each type of technology. We cannot implement energy efficiency measures in certain types of buildings, as example, historical buildings. So we need to take into account the type of the building itself. We need to deploy appropriate fund depending on the type of the project. And at the end, at least for the Lebanese case, we found that the energy performance contracting is the solution to increase the energy retrofit scenarios in the country with, of course, as I said, a low risk and a huge momentum for investment. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.